agenda item, you can come sign up here by the city clerk. Is it for the meeting that starts at 6, or did you have a budget question? Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Go with this angle, so I'm at a right angle with my head. But I mean, they've got me like this in some cases, but it's in a lot of places, so I know I have a problem too. But it's very dangerous, and I just wanted to mention it, because they've torn that all up, but they disappointed me when I don't see anything, like, you know, it's a curve, and he said then straight in, and then.
Okay, so I'm going to let the city manager know because he just walked in. City manager, could you please reach out to MDOT? We have a resident that has concerns on the transition lanes for the traffic control leaving and coming into Diamond Head. Not enough room for storage. She's having trouble getting over. Okay. Thank you for letting us know.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You'll take care of that then?
Yes, ma'am. He's going to reach out to MDOT and let him know your concerns.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
You are up. The FY25 budget workshop has begun.
Thank you. Just to start with a overall view of the budget, the FY24 budget, we had a predicted revenue for all funds of $20,760,000 with anticipated expenditures of $24,528,000. That would leave us with a deficit of $3.768 million. And the reason for that is the bond issue that we passed in 23, we'd already received those funds, and so they were sitting in our account. So that's roughly about $3.4 million, and then there was a little bit of other stuff here and there that we'd already received the revenue for. So that's why the expenditures are a little bit higher than the revenue. So for FY25, our projected revenues that we have is $22.9 million total. That's every fund we'll have. And expenditures is currently estimated at $25.6 million. That's about $2.7 million more in expenditures than in revenue. And that comes from, again, still the bond issue. We still have about $1 million left in that fund that we will expend on additional paving next year. And so that's about $1 million. And then our ARPA funds that we received the revenue for should be expended out this year of about $2 million. So roughly about $3 million in funds that we already have in the account or in our bank account that will come out as expenditures this year. So looking at the proposed FY25 budget, just the general fund, and I sent this to you, and Gerard called me on it, and I did not break that down by department. That made sense to you guys. It made sense to me, but if you look at the revenue is the first one, you can tell that one easily. But then when you get into the expenditures, if you look at the second number, 001 is the fund, that's our general fund, but the second set of numbers, 100, 110, 140, those are the different departments, and I did not separate that out to show you or so that you could see the differences. It just didn't dawn on me while I was doing it to do it that way. I was looking at the whole general fund budget and not thinking about showing you guys each department and where each department stands. But if you look at that, you can see that that's what that second set of numbers, that's where every time it breaks from 100 to 110 to 140 goes into the different departments for each for the general fund. But for revenue, what you have, or if I sent to you, you should have the original FY24 budget, what we've amended the FY24 budget to be. That has not fully happened because we haven't sent all amendments to you, as we haven't gotten, all the anticipated revenues we expect. Some of that's still expectation. So that will come in as a final budget amendment for the FY24 year when we do closeouts. And then our proposed FY25 budget. So, as I said, last year, our estimated revenues in just the general fund were $5.39 million. We anticipate now with amendments to be somewhere closer to $5.88 million, almost $5.9 million in amended revenue for FY '24. And then our proposed FY '25 budget is also about $5.88 million. The major differences in what the amendments were was the property sales and the transfer in from the bond bond recall we did on the McKeekee project, and then additional real property taxes. For the FY '25, we've made those adjustments to real property, showing that increase in what we anticipate to receive as ad valorem taxes for next year, and then a transfer in, gross proceeds from our capital lease. If the council still chooses to go that way, we will pay off our current equipment lease that we have next year and go out for a new capital lease on public works equipment. This is a good way to keep our equipment up to date and for what we need. So that's where that additional $350,000 comes in for capital lease. As far as going forward from there, general fund, the rest of it kind of stays the same definitely stays the same for council, which is the 100. And then when we get into the 110, which is court, not a lot of changes there. Going on down the line, not really making too many changes. One big change, unfortunately, that we did realize was for health and life. You may notice on your printout that I gave you, it decreased tremendously, and that's because we did not include for positions either that were vacant and or didn't take it currently, the health or life insurance. Because if that person leaves and someone else comes, they'll want the insurance. So we went back and budgeted for those numbers to include that in there. Everything else more or less stays the same. If there's anything specifically on any line item you want to talk about, we can. But overall, the anticipation for our fund balance for FY '24, we should end with a surplus of $144,000. Add that to our FY '23 ending fund balance of $915,000, should end us somewhere around a little over $1 million in fund balance. And our current projection of a 3-month expenditure, which is what you should hold in a fund balance, is 325. Yeah, 320. Yeah, so 330-ish or so. So almost $990,000 for 3 months. So the $1 million is kind of right where we should be holding our fund balance for any unknown expenditures that may happen for the next year. Right. So for our FY '25 budget, I did once we made those few changes for life and health, I did go back in. That's not on your paper, and I added. I want to say it was another $25,000 to streets and drainage to make it back up to $100,000, which is what it was budgeted for this year, and that should. Which I don't expect it to happen, but that would leave us with about $9,000 in fund balance increase in the FY '25 budget. Now, I did get some comments from Gerard earlier about the electric sign in the rear. That is not in here, so we can make a small adjustment to purchase the electric sign instead of...
And the front.
And the front if needed. We can make that adjustment for that instead of the streets and drainage, because we do have that money coming from not only our sales tax revenue, but also from the counties as well as the bond issue for next year. So we do have other funds for that and do not necessarily have to spend that $100,000 in streets and drainage for next year. If you go forward past that, we will look at some other funds. That's just the general fund. The other funds that we have that are somewhat important, the contingency fund, that's our $2 million contingency money that we have. for any natural disasters and so forth. That money will stay in there. It's generating about $110,000 this year in interest. We lowered that just a little bit to $100,000 just to be safe. For next year, those funds or that money, once the interest is earned for the year, will get transferred into the general fund, and it's in the 25 or the 24 amended budget as well as the 25 proposed budget. The Mississippi Infrastructure Modernization Fund, which is our internet sales tax fund, is a better way of saying that one. That is where our bond issue payments are going to come out of. Right now, or this year, we are expecting $570,000. I increased that a little bit to $580,000 just to be a little more positive. I believe this year's revenue is probably going to come in a little bit more than what we have already. We get it twice a year, and the first one was $280,000. So if we get that again, that's going to be $560,000. So we should be right there at it, as well as the interest on the account that we get. This year in FY24, we had $100,000 in engineering fees budgeted that we did not utilize, and then the principal and interest payment off the bond issue that we do have to make. So I went ahead and moved that $100,000 into actual streets and drainage for next year, along with $100,000 for 5 proposed budgets. So increase that to $200,000 overall. So that's why you see in FY25 a fund surplus or deficit of $90,000. The reason for that is we'll have $100,000 left over in the fund balance, probably a little bit more than that actually. So, and of course we don't have to spend all of that depending on how that revenue comes in from the state. So we'll just play that a little bit by ear and see how that works. For the FY22 bond issue, the Fund 302, like I said, we've got funds left over, about $1 million left over. So I budgeted a little bit of interest in there for next year, and then actually increased the interest that we've earned because we kind of held that money a little longer than we were anticipating last year. So we spend that out, so that's why you see that 1.025 deficit in FY25. Is the money's already in the bank, so now we're spending it out. So there is no revenue, just expenditure in that fund for next year. And then the last one, the most important one, solid waste. You do see the deficit in FY24. We're expecting to spend more than we receive, only by, if our number's coming out right, about $21,000, which is not bad at all. We do have a good fund balance to cover that. Next year, we anticipate spending about $111,000 more in expenditures than we do in revenue. And if that's the case, we'll probably take out most of our fund balance, and we'll have to look at increasing the solid waste fees for the 26 year. So we're okay for another year, and then we'll have to just see how that goes as we move forward. So, and that's roughly about it. If there's questions, I'll be able to be glad to answer, and we can talk about anything on here that you see that you want to know about. I did not give you the grant funds, which is what makes up all that other 20 million or whatever the number is, simply because that's sort of in and out. Most of those grants are reimbursable except for the ARPA one. So whatever we spend is what we get. So when it's all said and done, it's going to zero itself out.
Okay, we'll start with Councilman Marr.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One is on the solid waste fund. If we're having a deficit of $21,000 this year, why aren't we taking care of it for 2025 that we don't have a deficit at all?
Well, like I said, we have, I want to say there's like $100 and something thousand over in that fund already. So just to, instead of increasing the solid waste fees for the next year, we'll stay with what we are, where we are. Some of that actually goes away depending on as we receive new customers, they pay in, and so then we pay less back to solid waste. So we're collecting more on each individual person, correct or no?
It's about
About the same.
It's about 30 cents, 40 cents that we're over collecting.
So
So that's making
And
That makes
that's
sense.
from the past? So, because I'm
Yes.
looking at the revenue as 705, and I'm looking at the expenses 816,
Right.
that to me is a negative. Now, if you're pulling it out of a savings from past things, it
That-
still means we're headed in the wrong direction.
That is correct.
That we're pulling it out of a savings, so it seems to me we should be,
Right. That is correct. We are pulling that out of the savings, but we don't want to I mean, you wouldn't want to oversay or over collect on people. So right now, we're kind of right where we should be. And then that's something, like I said, we'll have to look at for the FY '26 budget to make sure we're, staying within that same number and not over collecting, and or under collecting, tremendously.
And then we have to look at CPI.
Right. Right.
Okay.
That's the big thing why it's over, why we're charging more than what, the people are, what it's due to us is because, the anticipation of the collection fees going up
okay.
each
Now-
year.
Now, I missed the
Mhm.
last meeting, so I
That's
apologize if this is a repeat, but did we come to a decision on outlays to people that requested funds for their charities and stuff like that, like CASA and?
We did not. I gave everybody, and I thought I sent an email to you, but maybe I did not.
You did, but I didn't want to answer it until I saw this clearer.
I got you. The number in the budget is the same as from last year. The total number is the same. But I gave each of you an opportunity to decide how you would like to see those funds spread out over I want to say it's 10 different entities that have requested or have received money in the past, to see how you guys wanted to spend that money. As Derek has told me several times over, of course, you have to keep in mind that this money, just because we have budget for it, does not necessarily mean it can be spent. We have to go through the process to make sure they have all the documentation and required paperwork that we would need to actually make the expenditure when the time comes.
Okay.
Councilman Clark?
No, ma'am, not at this time.
Okay, I have a few questions. So looking at, first of all, we talked about the health insurance. So looking at the total that we had, budgeted FY '24 was $255,183.56. FY '25, $155,028.25. That is a large difference.
Yes, ma'am, that's what I said. We did not budget for the vacancies we had, so we went back and made those adjustments.
So those are for spots that are not filled that you don't intend to fill?
Well, we intend to fill them, yes. They're just not filled currently, as well as for people who do not take the current health insurance. That's it.
So you went back and added 100,000, so now it's 255,028 or somewhere around that?
Possibly somewhere around that number.
Okay. The next question I had, consulting fees, FY '24, we had $342,863.58. And FY '25's 309,000 even. Did you say you added more to that? This is professional fees, engineering.
Yeah, which department?
It
You're
is
talking
all of
overall?
them. So what I did is
I have no
took
idea.
and sorted by category. So professional fees, consulting, this includes 140, 280, 301, 653, 140, 280, 301. All of those had professional fees.
That should be roughly the same number as last year. I don't,
It's about 40,000 less. So looking at that, and I know we have over 8 million in contracts. The grants that we receive pay for, over 8 million in work assignments. The grants that we receive pay for the engineering fees, except this 309,000 even is what I have, adding up the 1, 2, 3.
that would be for things such as the traffic engineer, the city engineer, the specific engineering projects for plan overview and review that we have in there. So that's what that number comes up to. And it's probably less, just anticipating not using as much I know administration, we had $5,000 this year in the budget that we removed out of there, as we don't plan on using administrative engineering fees.
Okay, then on salaries, administrative. So I'm assuming administrative, can you clarify what's the difference between administrative and non-administrative?
An administrative position is someone for professional, whereas a non-administrative is clerical.
Okay. So on salaries, administrative,
We have non-administrative. Well, I mean,
we have, did this include the 3% raise? Because it's 5,000 greater. It was
correct.
732,040 last year. This year, 738,739. But on salaries non-administrative, last year was 742,925.55, and this year is 511,914. It went down.
again, that's the positions that were not budgeted for, that we have corrected.
And the non-administrative would be like public
Public
works.
Works employees, yes.
Can we get a list by, and I know all these GL numbers, like, I get what you're saying, 301 is a different classification, 100, 110, 140, but for new people, it'd be helpful if we had them broken out by the GL, and we know that, okay, this is court, this is public works. You know how we used to do it?
Yeah, it's in their binders that we gave the new people when they came in. It's the budget section that has what the departments are.
Can we get the budget broken out that way so we have a clear visual? I had to take the PDF, make it into an Excel file, and sort to be able to get where they were all grouped, to make it easier. Then on the grants, can we get the grants listed by the project so that we know what grants, or, what grants go with what and how much we have in grant funding? And IT fees, I thought went up, but, it had $342,863.58 for FY '24, FY '25, $309,000. It went down.
I don't think IT fees were that high.
Oh, no, that's professional.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. IT fees did go down $2,000. It's almost $100,000. And then I had legal fees going up $20,000, and that was in category 140. What is
That's
that?
correct. That's just general legal fees.
Okay. Those were the questions. I still have some more. We're almost out of time, and I know other people need to talk. Councilman Cumberland?
No, I emailed John this week, and I think he got back to me in about 10 minutes with probably at least 10 or 12 questions, so he knows what's going on pretty well. Been living, breathing, and eating it all week, huh? Or all month?
Oh, yes.
Good job.
Okay, no questions for Councilman Cumberland. Councilman Finley?
I have no questions.
Councilwoman Lisi?
Thank you. I got my questions answered beforehand, like Councilman Cumberland, so thank you so much.
Okay. I still have more questions. That's why we have the budget workshop, so we ask questions, and the public gets to hear them, so they know what the questions are, and it makes it where they understand it better. When is our next budget meeting?
At the next regularly scheduled council meeting.
Okay.
Next one,
That's-
and
you're right.
when you accept it. So if you want to amend or look at anything, you need to y'all need to figure out a date that y'all want us to reset and do it again. Our next meeting is August 5th, which is at which meeting we will accept the form of the budget. and
August 6th.
advertise. The 6th.
August 6th. I still have questions, so I hate not doing it publicly. I hate doing emails and getting questions answered. But if nobody else has questions, Councilman Moore, do you have questions?
I don't have questions, but I would like to see it laid out where I can study it more. Like, this is nice, the way you did the building list with all of the categories actually on it. But I'm still looking at the comparisons with this, even though you hand wrote them in. I wouldn't, I know this might go against everybody else, and I really don't feel like I should because you guys had a meeting without me, but I wouldn't mind another half-hour budget meeting before the August 6th meeting, just to finalize everything, because there is just some loose ends that I'd like to have clarified, that's all. And I gotta look at them to know what to ask.
Okay. Councilman Clark?
I like that idea, having another one right before the next meeting.
Councilman Cumberland?
I think the only thing I have left to discuss is appropriations, but absolutely, if you guys want to meet again, I'm all for it.
Councilman Finley?
Absolutely.
Councilman Lisi?
Great idea.
All right, so we're going to move to adjourn this meeting, and then we'll recess the next meeting. Could I get a motion to adjourn?
Recess.
Motion made by Councilman Finley. Could I get a second?
Second.
Second made by Councilman Cumberland. City Clerk?
Finley,
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
Cumberland,
Yes?
Clark,
Yes.
Marr,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
So that's August 6th, 5:30, correct?
Yes, we'll make a motion at the end of this meeting to adjourn. So anybody wishes to
Jeannie,
address,
It'll need to be before then, as we're thinking about it, because the budget form will have to be ready to approve,
Present for the 6th.
so.
what about the Tuesday prior to that? What's the date of that?
We do have a planning and zoning meeting at 6, but we could meet, but prior to that, there'd be
July 30th.
July, actually, I think the next
23rd, you mean?
23rd is the next planning and zoning, where we could do July 30th, but it'd be up to, I guess, Jeannie and John, how soon they could incorporate whatever changes y'all had. So, but either date would be available.
Can you have it ready by July 23rd?
Certainly.
Okay, let's do that at 5:30.
So July 23rd is what we're gonna recess to at the next meeting. Okay.
When
All
is
right.
what time is the Planning and Zoning Commission?
6.
It's at 6.
Okay.
So with that being said, we've got like 1 minute. Does anybody wish to address the council? Did y'all already sign up? Okay, come on up. Can you come sign up? Where do I sign? Right up here with the city clerk. Bob, did you need to sign up? Okay.
July 23rd, 5:30.
You have a minute.